Hello, welcome to another edition of Am Abel Foundation's Medicine Makers. Where your destination is a career in medicine, we're going to help you get there. I'm your host, Cornelius Conway, and today we're going to be speaking about Ross University specifically, but medical schools in the Caribbean. What are they and how do they help you matriculate to be what you want to be, which is a physician? So today we're going to be a little bit busy. I'm not sure we're going to be able to take any calls. There's a lot of information that's going to be passed through. A lot of information that you guys would definitely look forward to having, because I know a lot of you guys who watch this channel are definitely trying to get into medical school, and this is a good option for those looking for a way when might seem like there isn't a way. So we have a great person that's coming here all the way from Ross University for Florida. He came all the way from Florida to Chicago in this cold weather. But hey, we're happy to have him. He's going to share some great information for us. How you doing? It's Mr. Sean Powers.
Very good to see you. Appreciate it.
Doing well?
Absolutely, appreciate it. We're big supporters of the Am Abel Foundation, as you know, so really our pleasure to be here.
Definitely. So before we jump into these questions, let's show a quick video to kind of give you guys a taste of what Ross University is about and what's Caribbean medical schools.
Ross gives us a chance to become physicians and become really good physicians at that.
If it wasn't for Ross, I would never have a chance to do what I'm doing now.
Ross is what really taught me how to push and keep going.
Ross means to me a dream realized. This is something that I've wanted to do for a while, and they gave me the opportunity to do it.
Ross didn't waitlist me. Ross gave me the opportunity that nobody else was willing to give me.
Ross to me is your own story that you can write. You make the characters, you make the plot, and you write the ending is the best part. And if your ending is to become a doctor, surgeon, anesthesiologist, if you sit there and write that story and you put in the time and the work, you will come out with the ending that you want.
So that was the video, and we're going to hop right into the questions. Excuse me. So, my first question is, what are some of the challenges that U.S. applicants face when they're trying to get into these medical schools here in the 50 states? They're not able to, and what causes them to go to the Caribbean, specifically Ross?
Well, as you well know, certainly there are so many medical schools here in the U.S., and which is a good thing because we have such a need for physicians in this country. We need more physicians. Unfortunately, U.S. medical schools are simply unable to train all of the physicians that we need in this country.
Right.
There are far more qualified applicants today to medical schools in the U.S. than there are seats in medical schools.
Sure.
Last year was another record year for students applying to medical school in the United States. More than 52,000 individual people made applications to medical schools in the U.S. Yet only 21,000 plus, it was about 21,600, were successful at gaining admission to medical schools here. And when you think about it, those 52,000 people who applied, on average, applied to 20 medical schools. So that gives you a better idea and understanding of the actual competition that's out there. I think that there's even there's probably another 10 or 15,000 people that are out there who want to go to medical school but are aware of how difficult it is to get in, and they don't even bother to apply. So they go off and they do other things. Now, when you think about it, the average student getting in has about a 5.10 on the MCAT and a 3.7 GPA. So admission is obviously a numbers game. But as students who apply, those 50,000 students know all too well, just getting an interview is even a numbers game.
Sure.
You'd probably agree with me if I told you that my opinion is the best way to find out if a candidate is a fit for your school is to sit down with them, get to know them, interview them.
Definitely.
Right? So that's the best way for any medical school to determine who a fit for their program would be. Would you be surprised if I told you that only 5 to 10% of applicants to a given school even get an interview?
Right.
So it's amazing. So at Ross, what we try and do is we actually interview more than 90% of the students who apply, because we really believe that sitting down with somebody and getting to know them is the key. So, but anyway, so really the opportunity that we offer, being able to open a door where a door may have been closed elsewhere on that opportunity. Access, to education is really the key for us. It's why we were founded 40 years ago. So our 14,000 alumni who have come through the program in those 40 years, who are out practicing on the other side, they've blazed that trail. So, certainly, we offer the opportunity to go to medical school where other schools may not, be able to provide that opportunity. So, we look at things a little bit differently in the admissions process, and I'm sure we'll get into talking about that as we go through the program.
Definitely. And when you have this student that's looking for that other option, right, in the Caribbean, what are some of the things they should be looking out for when they're choosing a Caribbean medical school specifically?
Well, here in the U.S., education is overseen by the LCME, as viewers probably know, the Liaison Committee on Medical Education, which ensures that all medical education programs in the U.S. meet certain standards, and Canada as well. When you start talking about international programs, in the Caribbean in particular, there is no such body.
Right.
So what I want you to understand is that all Caribbean medical schools are not created equal. So what I tell people is make sure that you're choosing a recognized program. So what does that mean? What does recognized mean? Well, there's over 40 medical schools now operating in the Caribbean today. And like I said, there are a lot of varieties between those programs. First thing you want to look at is what their mission is about. Where do their students come from? Many schools will bring in students from all over the world, and they train them to go back and practice all over the world. Our focus is very specific here on North America and meeting the great physician shortage that we're facing in this country, particularly in primary care. So our focus is here. But back to the recognized program idea, again, because we have 40 years of experience doing this, 14,000 graduates, Ross, what the name is, it's a known commodity. People know what Ross University is. Dr. Conway from I Am Abel talks about the mentors that have come through Ross who are working with the I Am Abel Foundation. There are a lot of Ross doctors out there around the country. Here in Illinois alone, there are at least 500 that are practicing today. So there are a lot of folks out there around North America. So when students start to look at their options in the Caribbean, they want to make sure that they're going to have that opportunity to come back and practice in the United States. And from state to state, that may vary.
Right.
Because each state medical board determines who can come in and practice medicine,
Right.
In that state. So certainly, you want to look at, how the program is perceived, how that school is perceived, where it is that you want to practice. And because there are so many schools now operating, you'd probably be surprised to learn that beyond the top couple of names in the Caribbean, if you go anywhere else other than the top couple of names, there's some restriction on what you can do.
For sure.
So it sounds like a very simple question, but when you start looking around at international medical schools, probably the first question you want to ask of any program that you're considering applying to is, what can I do with a degree from your school? Where can I go? Because if it's not Ross and a couple of the other top programs, well-known programs, well-recognized programs, there's going to be some restriction, and that comes in one of three different areas. While you're a student at the university, there's going to be some restriction on what you can do for clinical rotations in the second half of your education, where you can go, what types of hospitals you can get into. When you become a graduate, there's going to be some restriction on what you can do, where you can go for residency. And then when you complete residency, there's likely going to be some restriction on what you can do, where you can become licensed. We have no such restrictions like that. Because we've been around for so long, because we're recognized the way we are, there is no restriction on what you can do with a Ross University degree. So all 50 states are open to you, all provinces of Canada, and Puerto Rico as well. And that goes for clinical rotations while you're a student, residency placement upon graduation, as you develop your specialty, and then your own license to practice medicine after you complete that residency. So that's the key, making sure that you're going to be able to do what it is that you want to do upon graduation without restriction.
For sure. And considering the I Am Abel Foundation, we're founded in Chicago. We're a Chicago foundation, right? What are some of the reasons that a student, a pre-medical student, right, they're looking to go into medical school, why should they look at Ross, specifically in the Illinois, Chicagoland area?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with outcomes. Right. So I mentioned before. I mean, you know yourself, a number of Ross University graduates who are working with the program. Being able to come back here and practice medicine in this area, I think, is key. I think a lot of people here nearby would be interested in returning home.
Sure.
You know, I mean, if you don't get into one of the programs here in the city or in Illinois, then you start to look at options out of state, and then, you know, you never know where you're going to end up, but if your goal is to come back home and practice where you grew up, we can give you the opportunity to do that. Specifically, in the second half of your education, once you get through what's commonly known as the basic sciences, we call the medical sciences the first part of the program, and you move into clinical sciences, we partner with 19 hospitals around the country in 9 different geographic locations. One of those locations and 2 of those hospitals are right here in Chicago. So we partner with Mount Sinai and St. Anthony's. So students from this area have the opportunity to come back home and do the second half of their education right here in the city
Sure.
at Sinai or St. Anthony. And obviously that's great because it's great training,
Great
these are
benefit,
great
yeah.
hospitals,
Right.
obviously, but then when you think about lifestyle, where will you be living
Right.
and that kind of thing, well, what if you could live at home? I mean, what a great benefit. So, and then again, just the well-worn path that's there, over 500 graduates of ours now practicing throughout the state and in this area. So Illinois is always one of the biggest feeders, quote unquote, into the university. So we see a lot of students from the Midwest for sure.
Definitely a great connection. I know some Ross University graduates myself here practicing, doing a great job. So I can vouch for that. We all know medical school is super expensive, right? It's not a secret. I think everyone can agree on that. What are some of the benefits as far as scholarships and grants that Ross offers its medical students?
Well, there are a number of different scholarships, you know, that are available, and you know, just like most things, I would direct folks to our website to get an understanding of the full list, and they range from, you know, smaller scholarships to, you know, large. It's just a huge range, and so we work with students during the admissions process to let them know what they'll be eligible for, and there are many scholarships you don't have to apply for. You're evaluated by the admissions committee automatically. There are some specific scholarships based around whether or not you've worked with one of our alumni. So there are some specific things, but along the lines of financing, I think, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, a really important differentiation for us compared to so many other international medical schools is the accessibility that our students have to federal loan programs, United States government loan programs. Again, over 40 medical schools in the Caribbean, just a handful of them are eligible to, or students are eligible to access federal loan programs. So if you filled out the FAFSA as an undergrad or graduate student, it's the exact same
Sure.
process. So because of the flip side, if the school you go to doesn't have access to federal loans, then the school is probably offering you private loans, a much higher interest rate. You have to start paying back interest while you're in school. So having access to federal loans is a real difference maker. And like I said, there are only a couple of medical schools in the Caribbean who are fortunate enough to be recognized by the U.S. Department of Education, like we are, so students can access federal loan programs. And
Sure.
you can take out loans to pay for the entire cost of your education. That's tuition, all of your living expenses, everything that you'll encounter along the way. We have plenty of students who come to us really without a penny in their pocket, and because of the financing options that are available, are able to pay for their entire education, you know, through
Sure.
those programs.
Yeah, that's a great benefit. As far as the graduates, right? We're talking about coming back to the United States and being able to work. It's a big deal. What are some of the outcomes of the Ross University graduates?
Wow, so many. And it's that time of year again, right?
Right.
So match week is next week.
Coming up.
That's right. At the beginning of the week next week, our graduates from all medical schools will be finding out. It'll be the conclusion of the match process. They'll find out that they've matched at the beginning of the week,
Right.
and then at the end of the week, students find out where and what they'll be doing. So we'll be back here in Chicago actually next Friday evening for one of our match parties. We do a number of them around the country.
Oh, right.
One of them right here in Chicago because of the base of because of how many students we have
Sure.
that are coming from here. So anyway, but so many outcomes, and each year. You know, we've got hundreds and hundreds of students that are moving into residency. Just to give you the numbers from last year, and I look forward to giving you updated ones next week, but last year was another 627 Ross University graduates moving on into residency. And while about 60% of them choose to go into primary care, which we're very proud of, we place students in about 20 disciplines
Wow.
each year. So you'll find our graduates all across the board. You'll find graduates across our 40 years in every, board certifiable specialty and subspecialty that exists. But year to year, you'll certainly find our graduates, not only in family medicine, internal medicine, surgery, pathology, anesthesiology, OBGYN, pediatrics, on down the line. When you visit the website and you get out onto our alumni page, you can actually take a look at interactive listings of our residency placements for every year going back to 2005. And
Okay.
so if you're a student and you're interested in pediatrics, for example, and you have a very specific idea of where you want to go or a particular hospital you'd like to get to for residency, you can look each year, you can sort by state, you can sort by specialty, you can even sort by hospital, and you can drill down and take a look at where our graduates end up year after year after year.
All right.
And we have a very high placement rate as well, so it's always up in the high 80% for first-time match rate, which is outstanding for an international medical program. So our graduates do extremely well at the time of graduation. So we're really proud of our outcomes, and again, it's that time of year again, so
Right.
I'm very excited about it.
For sure. And we know also that the USMLE is one of those exams that it's pretty daunting for any medical student. I would say that the MCAT is probably second to that, right? Because you need that to get into medical school for sure. But what's some of the outcomes for your USMLE takers over at Ross?
Students do very well. We've got a very high first-time pass rate.
Okay.
It's 94%, the most recently available
That's very high.
data. It's very, very good. And the average score is usually in the low 220s.
Okay.
Probably viewers may not even have a sense of what the context is for the scoring, but typically U.S. medical students will score on average 224, 225. Our students are a point or two, off from there, so
Right.
really virtually right on par. So our students do very well. We've got a lot built into the program that really helps students to prepare for the exam, because like you mentioned, like the MCAT, as when it comes time to apply to medical school, is a pretty important exam that's going to help determine where you can apply and what your chances might be. Well, so in a similar way, does the USMLE have an impact on where you're going to have an opportunity and what type of specialty you're going to have an opportunity to apply for? So, however, there's one key difference, though, whereas if you're unhappy with your MCAT score, you want to take it again and try and improve it, take it a few times if you can to get the best possible score, give yourself the best possible opportunity to get into medical school. With the USMLE, and it's a three-step process, commonly known as the board exams, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 1 and 2 while you're in medical school. You can only take those, once you pass, you're done. You can't retake them.
Right.
So we want to make sure that our students are scoring as well as they can to put themselves in the best position to apply for the residency that they want
Right.
later on, because if they're not happy with their score, well, as long as they pass,
It's done.
set in stone.
Right. For sure. That is one of the nuances of taking the USMLE as well. For those who are preparing for it, or the ones that are just trying to figure out how they're going to get into med school and how they're going to start preparing for those exams. But we know in medicine, diversity is a big issue. Diversity in healthcare. What are some of the demographics of Ross University's medical students?
We've got a pretty diverse student body. One way that we're surprisingly not so diverse is that when you think international medical school, you probably think of people coming from all over the world.
Right.
That's not the case at Ross. So 88% of our student body are citizens or residents of the United States. Another 9% are Canadian, and then we've got 3% of our students who are holding a passport from somewhere else.
Okay.
So surprisingly, it's really heavily, U.S., 88% U.S. citizens or residents. And then when you look a little bit deeper at it, we're always close to 50-50 male-female. Right now, I think we're running 52% female. But then when you talk diversity, in this country, we often look at ethnic or cultural heritage, and we're very diverse in that respect. We don't have a singular ethnic majority at Ross.
For sure.
Of course, we survey our students on that, and while as many as 30% don't answer the question because they're not required to, it's usually about 24% Asian heritage, 23% Caucasian, 14% African American, 10% Hispanic. So very diverse, and again, not a singular ethnic majority, which I think sets us apart from U.S. schools, which in many cases are often very homogeneous.
Sure.
So diversity means other things, though, and a key way to me that I think we're very diverse is in terms of our students' backgrounds. 80% of our students are between the ages of 22 and 29. And I can tell you that the other 20%, well, they're not younger than 22. So they're in their 30s, they're in their 40s, and beyond.
Right.
And which is interesting because you don't often see that in U.S. medical school. So why would somebody in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, why would they want to go to medical school? Well, they've got something inside telling them they won't be fulfilled until they do this with their lives, and maybe they were the person who applied coming out of undergrad and didn't have the opportunity.
Right.
And so they did something else with their life, and now they found us, and they want to do this. So, you know, in many cases, we'll be willing to give them a shot, provided they've done the right things on the pre-medical side. So, but think about what that means for you as a student. If you're in class with a bunch of people who are your age and in your mid-20s, you don't have a lot of life experience to draw on from your classmates. But if you have someone in your anatomy lab group who was a chiropractor for 15 years and is now looking to get the MD, you can learn a lot from that person.
Definitely.
You know, you're maybe in a clinical case, you're in a small group, 6 or 7 people working on a clinical case, you have no idea what you're doing, you turn to your left and the woman next to you says, I was an emergency room nurse for 15 years. I can tell you what to do here. So you can learn a lot from your fellow students in that way, as well as from your faculty. So I think the depth and breadth of the experience of our students means quite a lot and really contributes to that diversity that we have on our campus.
Definitely. And we're wrapping up here shortly, but before we get to that, for a student that's interested in getting into Ross, they saw this program and they definitely want to reach out. What are some of the ways they can reach out, get in contact with Ross University?
Sure. Well, the first thing I would say is, just like you, we're very active on Facebook. We're very active on social media. We do a lot of Facebook Live events, and unfortunately, we just didn't have a lot of time to talk about specifics of the campus and housing and all of the wonderful things that we have at our campus in Barbados. We do a number of alumni chats in this sort of format as well. So there's a lot of video out on Facebook, and so I would encourage people to get out there and dig through some of that and you know, take a look at the information that we have out there. Obviously, the website, rossu.edu, is out there. And in addition to that, we do information seminars all around the country. Here in Chicago, we were last here in January. Who scheduled that? You know, it was a snowy day on a Saturday in January, but we had a lot of, it's Chicago.
Yeah, we're used to it here.
Nobody stops. We had a lot of people come out. So, but our next event here in Chicago is going to be at the end of April, and it's on Saturday at the end of April. So I would encourage you to keep an eye on the website. We're about to announce that for registration. So we'd love to have you. The nice thing with the information seminars is that we have local alumni come out who take the time, they volunteer, and they talk about their experiences and they answer your questions. You don't want to hear it from the guy in the suit and tie, right? You want to hear it from the person in the white coat who's been through this. So we certainly do that for you. So those would be a couple of ways. Everything that you need really is on the website, rossu.edu, and you know, from there, obviously, we have every option to call, text, email, whatever you need. We can get in contact with you.
Sure. Any closing remarks for our audience here?
Well, I really just want to thank you very much. We look forward to coming out to the I Am Abel conference coming up in a couple of months, and we're always a proud sponsor of that. We look forward to continuing that relationship, and thank you so much for being here. It's been it's a quick program, so
definitely.
Thank you very much for having us. We
Pleasure
appreciate it.
having you. Definitely a pleasure. So if you guys are interested in viewing our other episodes coming up every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m., please tune in. Channel 21, also channel 99. You can, either one, depends on what type of provider you have. Also, you can always view 6:30 p.m. live at cantv.org/hotline. You want to get in contact with the I Am Abel Foundation, we have a website, www.iamabel.org. That's ABEL. Also, you can email us at info@iamabel.org. Please don't hesitate. Also, before I forget, we have a gala April 13th. It's April 13th, and we also have it's a medical symposium coming up in May. So please, look out for all the information on the website. It's all there. You can sign up there, and there's a lot of good information that's going to be there. We have a lot of booths with a huge amount of information there. So please come through. Tell your friends, and always don't forget to share the link to the show. So it was a pleasure with Mr. Sean Powers, and we'll see you next time.